Hello everyone and welcome to a new video on the channel. Today we are setting up the month of April in my reading journal and I'm so glad you're here with me. I am also very apologetic because for the first minute of this video the camera is kind of unfocused. It is all because of using this metallic pen. Unfortunately my camera just does not like metallic pens. I did not think about it and it kind of carried through into the next segment. So I have cut out the footage of doing the rest of the ornate border in this really lovely metallic color. It looks great in person, but my camera just really struggles. It is an older camera and yeah, it's just not having it when it comes to these types of metallic colors. So I do apologize that it kind of stayed out of focus until a little bit through this chapter header that I'm doing now. So if you're new here, hi, my name is Xiao. I really enjoy sharing my reading journal with you all, and last year I took you all to 12 different fantasy destinations. This year my reading journal theme for the whole year is filling in a compendium of magic, which is what I've named this book, and essentially each month I fill in a chapter on the findings that we had on our journey last year. So these are things that we found whilst traveling to those 12 different destinations. And for the month of April, chapter 4 is all on swords and daggers. And a lot of the books that I took you, or places, sorry, I took you to last year, are ones that have some sort of significance around a sword, or the sword becomes a really important factor to that person. It gives them some sort of power, or it frees them from the shackles that they've been in. Like I'm looking right now up at some Sorcery of Thorns artwork, and Elizabeth at one point becomes a warrior and she is fighting for herself but also her people. So little things like that meant that doing a swords and daggers thing was a given for this year, and it was actually supposed to be a little bit later in the year, but the theme that I wanted to do for April I had to postpone because the supplies that I had been talking to another company about hadn't arrived, so I decided to swap them around. That theme is now being done in May. The supplies have arrived. The video is already up on the channel. You can check that out. I will link it in the description below, but it meant that swords and daggers came forward, and I'm really happy about that because I had a really good time setting this up. I'm really happy with the colors that I used, and let's talk a little bit about this theme. So first off, if you're new here or haven't noticed, it's very obvious on the page right now that I am essentially going over top of pencil, and that is because I trace everything in. I've had a couple of questions asking how I keep everything uniform, and this is one of the tactics that I use a lot. And it is using fonts and printing everything out and then stenciling it into my journal. It takes a very long time, essentially doing the work twice, but it does mean that everything stays the same. I don't have the best consistency with my handwriting when I'm doing things like headers or just even my normal handwriting. You'll notice that sometimes in this book it is slanted, sometimes it is upright. It just depends on the mood that I'm in. I am very much so a Gemini, so my handwriting changes to go with my mood. But for someone who's also a perfectionist and likes to have things like this look uniform, that is one way to achieve it. And I also have a really good time going through places like dafont.com. That's one of the places that I use a lot. For my fonts, I use free fonts that are usually okay for either commercial or just like personal use. That I don't see this as like a commercial use, but yeah, I go through, I find the font by putting in the topic matter. So for this month it was swords and daggers, so I went to dafont.com and typed in the word sword. I also typed in the word dagger, and I found the font that I liked the most and downloaded it, and that's how we have this really cool font in the middle here. I then use it for the rest of the theme so it stays consistent, and I do that almost every single month. Sometimes I do get a font from like Creative Fabrica that I really like, which has a commercial license on it, and I might use that for a month. I've actually got a couple lined up that I might use in the next month or two because I really like them. We'll see how it goes with the themes, but for the most part I will type the topic in and I will find a font that will suit that most, or that I like the most. I'm using a Crayola Colours of the World super tip for the majority of my colour this month, and I'm really happy with the colour. It's a really nice dusky rose, and my entire theme for the Swords and Daggers is kind of based around this book here that I'm going to put on the screen. It is The Rose Bargain by Sacha Peyton Smith. I really enjoyed this book, but more so I liked that the cover had a floral feminine style, but there's actually daggers in there as well, and I thought maybe I could try and replicate that a little bit, so by using some colours that were associated with roses, so this dusky rose colour that I've used for the headers, and then finding some decorative elements that I could weave into the pages that follow this cover page, because I do tend to keep the cover page very consistent with the rest of them. It always has this ornate type border, just a different ornate one each month. It has the reference portion at the top and then some graphics and a header. So we're now done with this page once I've finished erasing all the pencil lines, and we can flip over to the monthly view. And I have to admit, there was a little mistake that comes up in this video that made me chuckle, and I only noticed that the mistake was there while I was editing this back, so I have fixed it now, but throughout this video I have no idea that I made it, and even in the flip through it's still the same, so we will get to that when that happens. But first off, I'm just going to add this little piece of decorative paper. It's from a KaiserCraft pack. I think it's called Vintage Florals, but I will, like usual, have all the supplies that I've used typed out below in the description. Some of them will have links, but the majority will just be listed. And I really liked this paper. I thought it was really bold and it lent into the style that I wanted to use for this theme. And then I have paired it again with that deep rose color of the super tip for the headers. I follow that throughout the entire theme, and then I'm using a slightly darker color again from the rose collection of these super tips, and doing an open calendar view, which is probably the reason why I make the mistake that I do, because I normally do a grid. I can never trust myself to count spaces correctly, so I normally do a grid so I can make sure everything is uniform. But for this design, it felt really important to me to leave it open, and it lent into a bit more of a feminine look, and I'm really happy that I did decide to do that, but it did mean that I made a small error, which we'll see in a moment. But the open calendar is quite pretty, and my best friend uses this type of calendar in her reading journal and normal journals a lot, but it's just not something that I tend to gravitate towards, and that is because I make mistakes like we're about to see in a second. It's a very simple mistake. I put 2 dots in the wrong spot, and looking back at it when I was editing, I was like, that's really obvious that I've put 2 dots in the wrong spot. So off camera just now, I have gone and gone and put down 2 more dots and used some correction fluid to cover the other 2 up. Very simple fix, and it looks fine now. But it was just really funny that I didn't notice it at all. I've been using the journal all month and had absolutely no idea. So now that the calendar is almost done, I have my headers in place. The last thing that we need to put on this page is the rest of the decoration. So I have 2 things. I've got those photos that I always print out, the aesthetic photos from Pinterest. So I've got a few swords and daggers that I can use. I did decide to cut this large one down and have it floating over top of the decorative paper. And then I also had 3 photos down the bottom here that I liked together. And then I did use a PET tape that I have, and unfortunately it has a smell to it. I didn't realize that it had a smell because when you pick up the roll now, I can't smell it at all. It's very, very pretty. I really like it. But unfortunately, every time I open my book at the moment, it has a bit of a smell to it. I'm hopeful that will fade with time, but that is what I get for getting some supplies from Temu. It is what you get when you purchase from there, I suppose. But it is a very, very pretty floral design in a burgundy colour, and I really liked this, but I always keep looking at it going, I don't know what I would pair it with, and I'm so glad that I decided to do this theme now and use this PET tape, because it does add quite the pretty element to the page and finishes it off. And as you can see, my camera stand, I think, has been shifted a little bit. Every time I looked up into the viewfinder when I was filming this, it did look like it was all in the shot, but as I just did then, I just dragged the book closer to myself. So I kept pulling it away from the view. So I do apologize that there's some of these elements going down on the page and you can't quite see what I'm doing, but you do get the overall vibe and the design that I'm going for on the page. And to finish it off, I decided that I would put a border around it. It feels like borders are a thing of 2025. I did try this washi tape but didn't like it, so I went in with that metallic pen, the Gellyroll, and just did a quick border around the outside of the page. And now we're on to the next page, which is another page that I did make a little bit of an error on. As you can see, I'm cutting a Dutch door. This is normally my readathon page, but I'm not participating in any active readathons over April. I decided to do a readathon catch-up though, because I do participate in yearly readathons and I haven't kept up to date with them. This is where I realized that I had cut my Dutch door too short because the headers are sticking out the other side, but it actually didn't matter because the other information was going to stick out anyway. So I've come to accept that the Dutch door did not work in our favor for aesthetic reasons, but I am very thrilled that I decided to do one because it has been very helpful with my overall use of this page. I will get into that in a little bit, but right now I'm focusing on getting these flowers down. I decided to cut it in half and put each piece on each side, and then use some more of these swords and daggers to fill in the gaps, kind of like a little bit of interest along the side there. And I'm really happy with how the sides of these two pages end up looking. It's the portion in the middle that does become a little bit, I'm not sure if I like it or not, but it's done now and it hasn't affected me using it, so I'm not going to change it. But yeah, as you can see right now, it is not great footage for you. I am sticking down the other side onto this portion here, and you can't see that I'm doing that very well, but I will straighten the page up in a minute and carry on with setting up those little swords and daggers down the side. The reasoning for using the Dutch door was to not only make not only to utilize more space, because as I mentioned, I normally have a readathon and that normally takes up 2 pages. I didn't need 2 pages this time around for the catch-up that I was doing, so using a Dutch door simplified the fact that I didn't need that extra portion of paper, and unless I did a whole bunch of decoration, it was easier to just chop it off and make the Dutch door. So on this left side it says Readathon Catch Up. We're about to see that being pinned in now, and on the right side behind the Dutch door I have my usual prompts and book haul. So I did do the TBR vending machine for April, and I did 5 prompts, and then on the Dutch door itself I added on the headers, but I don't do it in the video. I added on TBR and I also added on arcs, and that separated them up. I also made a mistake here with some tape going off the edge there, and it is very easy to fix. You just use an eraser and hope for the best that doesn't stain, which in my case thankfully it didn't. So that's how I fixed that little issue up. But this was the portion where I was a bit like, did I go overkill? So I found some flowers in that page of the decorative paper that I wanted to cut out and put down the bottom and top of the Dutch door, and then I added a little sword on top. I'm not sure if it really looks great, but it's done now. It doesn't affect me. I can still use the page. Very functional, and like I mentioned just before, I'm not going to fix it. I'm now putting down the readathons that I have been using, participating in this year. There are 4. So I have the Buzzword Readathon, or reading challenge. I have the Easy Reading 2025 challenge. And then I have a year in 𝓤𝓷𝓷 or of 𝓤𝓷𝓷. I am not taking part in the 𝓤𝓷 semesters, but I do enjoy the year-long game, and I'm grateful that G has made it so for those who don't do the semester, we can still participate all year. And then I'm also participating in a year of Goober, which is run by my dear friends Jess, Monica, and Rachel over at the 𝓤𝓲𝓷𝓿 Buddies book club, sorry. And yeah, really like their little readathon. It's quite fun this year. And I will actually be taking part in their May readathon, the Goober readathon. So I'll share more about that when I set up for May. But for now, I just need to catch up on some things that I've fallen behind in. I think I actually did some of a year of Goober already, but I just didn't think I had. So I wrote down the 4 parts that I needed to focus on to catch up on. And then also I have some outstanding TBR vending machine games. I normally don't do this and try and finish them, but 3 of them were left over, and a couple of them I really wanted to try and get done. If I can't get it done in April, no big deal, I'm just going to carry on. But I decided to fill in that space. So hopefully that made that page all sound cohesive and how it worked out. I'm really enjoying it. It's helping me separate my TBR and my ARC and take that information in separately, because I normally have them side by side and it's kind of hard to take in that information when it's all there in your face. For now, we're on to the final page, and it is the reading log, and I am just using the same color as the header to fill in these little sections for each part of the book. This is where I jot down what books I've read, and those little highlighted areas is where I write down the title, the author, that kind of thing. So just getting the page all set up now. And normally I don't do a lot of decoration on this page, but I do end up coming back in with some of that PET tape at the top of the page because it just looked really bare. And I'm glad that I did that, although it was a little hairy at a couple of points where I thought maybe I'd gone too far, but I'm happy enough with how it looks in the end. And then I'm just going to, before I do that, add on the numbers for the books. I do 12 spaces. I don't tend to read more than 12 books each month. Sometimes I do 13 and I just add in a tip in, but otherwise 12 is normally more than enough for me to track. And here we are with some leftover bits of that PET tape. I'm just going to slap them down on the top here because the header was too low. I decided to go all the way across to fill in that white gap up above, and I'm quite glad that I put the header where it is. However, I do think I should have just gone through and put some more of this tape down, as opposed to what I end up doing in a moment to use up the final 2 pictures I had left for Swords and Daggers. I just thought, well, I've already printed them out, I might as well use them. I'm not sure if they add to the page enough, but it is what it is. And overall, this theme has come together really well. I always tend to like April and May in my journal. I don't know what it is, but the themes for those months tend to be some of my favorites. And so far, I've really enjoyed this one. I like the colors, and I like that I had a consistent theme throughout and came in with that idea from the book cover. So very thrilled that my idea mostly came to life, and I'm overall thrilled with this. And now we're at that portion of the video where I quickly tidy everything up, because we know that I get incredibly chaotic when I am being creative, but I want to have the table clear for when I do my final flip through for you all. but here is where I just add those last two pictures that I found on my desk. I thought, why not? And I cut this one down because it was a little bit too big. But other than that, we are about to hit the final flip through, and I'm just really grateful that you've spent some time with me today. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope that if you're new here, you might consider staying around. I've got a few more videos coming out. I know my schedule has been very inactive lately, but this is the third video of the week, so I'm hopeful that that means that we're back on track. And until we next meet, I hope you have fun reading or journaling, and I will hopefully see you in my next video sometime very soon. Thank you again for stopping by. Bye everyone.